I want to tell you about two different people. The first one is 24 years old, making $38,000 a year. It's a Tuesday. Their car makes a noise it's never made before. The shop calls and says it's $400. And this person sits in their car in the parking lot and does math. Not casual math, real math. Which bill gets pushed? Whether the credit card can take it. Whether they need to call someone. The second person is 34 years old, making $85,000 a year. It's a Tuesday. Their car makes a noise it's never made before. The shop calls and says it's $400. And they sit in their car in the parking lot and do math. Same math, same knot in the stomach, same mental scan of which bill gets pushed. These are the same person, 10 years apart, $47,000 extra a year apart. And the $400 car repair hurts exactly the same amount. So here's the question, and I want you to actually sit with it because you probably already know the answer and just haven't said it out loud. Where did the money go? Not where did it get spent? Where did it times go? Because $47,000 a year is not a rounding error. That's a whole second salary. That's more than most Americans make in a year, arriving on top of what you already had, and it produced nothing. No cushion, no safety, not even a slightly less panicked Tuesday. My name is Wealth Peak, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people get raise after raise and end up in exactly the same spot they started. If you've ever gotten a real raise, a good one you were genuinely excited about, and then 6 months later looked around and thought, wait, why doesn't anything feel different? Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. This one's for you. And I want to say something before we get into it, because it matters. You are not the problem. I know that's what you think. I know that somewhere in your head, there's a voice saying you should be better at this by now, that other people have figured it out, that if you were just more disciplined, you wouldn't be making 85 grand and sweating a car repair. That voice is wrong. What's happening to you is a mechanism. It's not a character flaw. It works on almost everybody. It works quietly, and it works whether you're paying attention or not. But you have to be able to see it. So let me show you the shape of it. Here's the advice you've heard your entire adult life. Can't get ahead? Earn more. Make more money. Increase your income. Every finance channel says it. Every book says it. And honestly, it's not wrong. Income matters enormously. You cannot budget your way out of a genuinely insufficient salary, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. But that advice is only half a sentence, and the missing half is where everyone dies. Because more income doesn't make you wealthier. More income makes you wealthier times if the gap widens. And for most people, it doesn't. For most people, the gap stays exactly the same size forever, no matter what the number on the paycheck says. The gap. Remember that word. We're coming back to it. And there's a number attached to it that explains why a person making $200,000 a year can be genuinely, actually poorer than someone making 60. Not poorer in some philosophical way. Poorer, less money. That's later. First, let's talk about how the trap actually closes. Here's what everyone thinks lifestyle inflation is. They think it's a choice. They picture some guy getting a raise and immediately marching down to a dealership and buying something stupid. And sure, that happens, but that's not the mechanism. That's the cartoon version. The real thing is much quieter, and it's already happened to you. You get the raise. You decide, genuinely decide, you're not an idiot, that you're going to be smart about this one. You're going to bank most of it. And then over the next 11 months, nothing dramatic happens at all. Your lease is up, and the nicer building is only 200 more. And you can afford 200 now. Your phone breaks and you get the better one because why not? You're not 24 anymore. You stop checking the grocery receipt. You start saying yes to dinner. You buy the flight instead of the drive. Your dog gets the good food. You get a haircut somewhere that requires an appointment. Not one of those decisions is wrong. I want to be really clear about that. Every single one of them is defensible. Every single one of them made your life measurably better. If I put any one of them in front of you in isolation, you'd approve it, and so would I. And 11 months later, the raise is gone. All of it. And you cannot point to where it went because it didn't go anywhere. It dissolved. That's the mechanism. Lifestyle inflation isn't a purchase. It's a leak, and nobody notices a leak because a leak isn't an event. Now, let's do the math, because the math is worse than you think. Let's say you get a raise from $70,000 to $85,000, $15,000. That's a great raise. That's a raise you tell people about. That's a raise you feel good about for a week, except you don't get $15,000. Federal takes its cut, and because it's stacked on top of everything you already earn, it gets taxed at your highest rate, not your average one. State takes a cut, depending on where you live. Payroll taxes take a cut. Your 401k contribution is a percentage, so it quietly scales up too. Your health premium might tick up. By the time that $15,000 raise reaches your actual bank account, you might be looking at $9,000 or $10,000, realistically. And that's before we've talked about a single thing you bought. So spread across 12 months, your life-changing raise is about $800 a month. $800 a month is real money. I'm not dismissing it. But $800 a month is also, and I want you to notice this, almost exactly the difference between an okay apartment and a nice apartment. It's almost exactly a car payment. It's almost exactly what it costs to stop thinking about food. Do you see the problem? The raise is precisely large enough to purchase one lifestyle upgrade, not two. One. So you buy the one, and the raise is now permanently spoken for, forever, and your bank account balance has not moved a single dollar. You didn't get a raise. You bought something with a raise in advance before you ever saw it. Now, here's where this gets genuinely cruel, and this is the part I really want to land. Lifestyle only goes one direction. Think about a ratchet. A ratchet is a mechanism that turns one way and locks. You can crank it forward as much as you want, and it holds every inch you gain. But it will not go backward. That's not a flaw in the design. That's the entire design. Your standard of living is a ratchet. Going from a small apartment to a nice apartment, that takes about 2 weeks to feel completely normal. 2 weeks. Then it's just where you live. You don't feel wealthy in it. You don't walk in the door feeling grateful. It's a Tuesday, and this is your apartment. Now try going backward. Try going from the nice apartment to the small one. That doesn't feel neutral. That feels like failure. That feels like something went wrong in your life. You'll tell people you're simplifying. You'll be a little embarrassed when they visit. Same apartment, same square footage, same rent. The one you were thrilled to get at 24 is a source of quiet shame at 34. And nothing about the apartment changed. That asymmetry is the whole trap. Upgrades cost you 2 weeks of happiness. Downgrades cost you months of grief. Which means every single upgrade is functionally permanent because the pain of reversing it is so much larger than the joy of getting it that you will never voluntarily do it. So every raise ratchets you forward and nothing ever ratchets you back. And 10 years later, you're making $85,000 with a life that costs $85,000, and you have precisely as much freedom as you did at 38, which is none. And here's the thing nobody warns you about. It's not just the stuff. Let's talk about what actually happens when your salary goes up, because it isn't only a number changing, your whole environment changes with it. And your environment is doing more work than your willpower ever will. You get the better job. Now you have different coworkers. Your old coworkers pack lunch and complain about it. Your new coworkers get lunch out every day without discussing it because it's not a decision to them. It's just lunch. And you're not going to be the person who says, actually, I brought a sandwich on day 3 of a new job. You're going to go. Of course you're going to go. That's not weakness. That's being a functional human being who wants to be part of a team. Then it's the after work thing. Then it's someone's birthday. Then it's the group trip that's been planned for months and costs $900 and everyone's going, nobody pressured you. Nobody said a word. That's what makes it work. There is no villain in this story. That's precisely why it's so effective. Your sense of normal is not something you calculate. It's something you absorb from the people around you automatically without permission. So you didn't just get a raise. You got assigned a new baseline. And the baseline came with a price tag that nobody itemized for you. And it goes further than lunch. Somewhere in here, the spending stops being about the things and starts being about who you are. Because at some point you crossed a line where you stopped being a person who's trying to make it and became a person who has sort of made it. And people who've made it don't do certain things. They don't drive that. They don't live there. They don't say, I can't afford it out loud, ever, to anyone. That last one is the expensive one. Watch for it in yourself. There's a moment where you stop being able to say the words, that's not in my budget, not because you can't afford it, but because saying it would reveal something about you that you don't want revealed. So you say yes, you go, you pay. And that is how someone making 6 figures ends up with no savings while genuinely believing they're being responsible. They're not being irresponsible. They're paying in cash to maintain a story about themselves. And that story is the most expensive thing they own. Now, let's talk about where this actually blows up, because I see this one constantly, and it's the most painful version, the promotion that makes you poorer. You get the big one, not a cost of living bump, the real one. Title change, 20, 30%. It's the thing you've been working toward for 3 years, and within a year, you have less money than before. Here's how. The promotion comes with a commute, or a city, or a relocation. The new role has a dress code, spoken or otherwise. It has hours, which means you're not cooking anymore, which means you're spending 60 a day on food you don't even enjoy. It has stress, and stress has a price. You buy things to feel better, and you go on the trip because you have to get away, and you get away from a job that's paying for the trip you need because of the job. And then the raise itself pushed your housing budget up because the mortgage calculator said you qualify for more. And qualifying for more feels like being told you deserve more. So you're up 30% on paper and down in reality. And you cannot say a word about it to anybody because you got promoted. You won. What are you going to do? Complain? That's the trap at its most complete. It gave you the thing you wanted, took the money, and took your right to feel bad about it. Okay? So how do you get out? I'm going to give you one idea, and it's the only one that matters. And it's the thing I promised you at the start. Your income is not your financial situation. I'll say it another way, because this is the whole video. Your salary is not a number that describes your life. It's one of 2 numbers, and by itself, it tells you literally nothing. The number that describes your life is the gap. The distance between what comes in and what goes out. That's it. That's the only number. And here's why this is so hard to see. The gap is invisible. Nobody knows yours. You can't see anyone else's. There's no way to show it off. Salary, you can say out loud. The house, the car, the trip, those broadcast automatically. The gap does nothing. It sits there and does nothing visible at all. And it's the only thing that's real. So let me finally give you that number I promised. 2 people. Person A makes $200,000 a year and spends $192,000. Person B makes $60,000 a year and spends $48,000. Person A saves $8,000 a year. Person B saves $12,000 a year. Person B, making less than a third, is building wealth 50% faster every single year, forever. And it's worse than that because it compounds in both directions. Person A doesn't just save less. Person A needs $192,000 a year to keep existing, which means person A can never stop working, can never take a risk, can never absorb a bad quarter. Person A is more trapped, not less. Their salary built the cage and their lifestyle locked it. Person B needs $48,000 a year to be fine, which means person B is roughly 4 times closer to being free on a third of the income. The person making $200,000 a year is poorer, not spiritually, actually. Less money, less security, less freedom, fewer options. And every person at their office thinks they're winning, including them. That's the number. That's the whole thing. So here's what I actually want you to do. And it's not what you think. I'm not telling you to stay in the small apartment forever. I'm not telling you to turn down the promotion or eat rice or feel guilty about the nice coffee. That's not the point, and it's never been the point. I'm telling you to make the ratchet a decision instead of a reflex. The next raise you get, The next one, whenever it comes, you already know what will happen to it. It'll dissolve. 11 months from now, you won't be able to find it. You know that now because you've watched it happen before. So decide first, before it arrives. Pick a number, half, a third, whatever's honest, and root it somewhere your daily life cannot reach it. On the day the race starts, not after. Because you cannot inflate a lifestyle with money you never saw. And then let the rest of it dissolve. Genuinely. Enjoy it, let it go, don't audit it. That's not failure. That's the deal you made with yourself. And you made it on purpose, which is the entire difference. Because here's the thing about that guy in the parking lot doing math about a $400 repair on $85,000 a year. He didn't fail. Nobody ever showed him the mechanism. He was told to earn more, he earned more, and he did exactly what he was told, and it did nothing, and then he blamed himself for it. You've seen it now. That's the only thing that had to happen. The raise was never going to save you. The gap was always the thing. And the gap doesn't care what you earn, it only cares what you decide. Decide first. That's it. That's the whole trick.